Will the Cardinals be able to avoid the trap game in 2025? And who are the top candidates to throw a wrench in Louisville's plans?
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my 6th year covering U of L, 4th year hosting this show. And I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube, 5 days a week, your team every day. We are ranking the top 3 trap game candidates in 2025 for the Louisville football team. We, over the past 2 off seasons, have done the same thing. And unfortunately, a team from those top 3 rankings, both years, ended up upsetting the Cardinals in the following season. And I'm hoping, knock on wood, that doesn't happen this year. But we do have to talk about, well, who are those trap game possibilities? It will be a mixture of how good the other team may be, the context, within the schedule, and much, much more. But first, today's episode of the show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. So like I said, the past 2 off seasons, we have ranked the top 3 trap games. And unfortunately, in the first 2 years of Jeff Brohm's tenure, Louisville has lost to one of those teams in the respective discussions. In 2023, it was Pittsburgh. And we were hoping that that was going to be a fluke, right? I mean, you have the win against Notre Dame. You get on that high. And the Pittsburgh game, it's raining a ton. You see Renato Brown go down due to injury, and that kind of shook some guys mentally. Jawar Jordan got hurt early on, and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And you're hoping it was just a fluke. Well, it sort of showed that it might be a trend when Louisville lost to Stanford in 2024, this past season. They had no business losing to the Cardinal, but they got up by multiple scores and sort of just took their foot off the gas. And before you know it, Louisville is an unnecessary roughness penalty away from giving Stanford the game-winning field goal. So, granted, even before Brohm, Louisville has had a history of losing games that they're not supposed to, and that's kind of just how competition works, but specifically for Louisville. So, let's take a look at the 3 possible trap games. We're going to rank them 3, 2, 1 in as many segments to conclude the show. And it kind of goes from like context-based to the matchup, to the overall talent of the other team, to where the schedule is, and it kind of just depends. Number 3, it's a team that Louisville just has not really had a ton of success against since joining the ACC back in 2014. That is the Virginia Cavaliers. For whatever reason, it seems like this game between these 2 teams is either a complete blowout or it's really uncomfortably close. Past couple years, it's been the latter. 2023, Virginia had no reason being in the game with Louisville, and it took a Isaac Garendo, or actually, what was it, Amari Huggins-Bruce on a touchdown grab from a good amount of distance out, and also a breakaway run from Isaac Garendo to be able to beat the Cavaliers. 2024 might have been a little bit more even, right? But the Cardinals still only won that game by 4 points. Tyler Shuck and company led a go-ahead game-winning drive, and then they bent but did not break in that final drive against the Cavaliers. Now, thankfully, there's no Anthony Calandria anymore. He is transferred out. And I know that he seemed like he was the first one to sort of expose the Louisville defense's inability to defend the mobile quarterback in 2023. Malachi Fields has transferred out, another guy that has caused Louisville so many fits from that wideout spot. So the fact that Virginia, for whatever reason, always seems to be a tough game. That's why I'm throwing them on this list. And the reason why they are number 3 and not higher is because, well, Virginia is projected to be, once again, one of the worst teams in the conference. Last year, they started out 4-1. The level of competition wasn't the greatest. And it showed because they end the season finishing 1-6, like 5-7 overall. There's a lot riding on this season for Tony Elliott. He is 100% on the hot seat. But just because this is a tough game, always historically, that's kind of the reason why they're on this list. Because you look at the other games, I kind of went back and forth on the James Madison game. I do feel like Louisville matches up better with James Madison than a couple teams that were possibilities. And I'm not going to spoil and give away who is and isn't on this list. But the reason Virginia made the list primarily is because of how historically tough this game is for whatever reason. Now, for Virginia this season, they have a new quarterback. It's Chandler Morris from North Texas, and I actually think he's a tad bit underrated. Played pretty solid last year for is it the Falcons? Is the Mean Green, the Falcons? I'm not sure what North Texas's mascot is, but he's a guy that when he's not turning the football over, really solid quarterback. And it's going to be a different look. Virginia is going to North Texas is the Mean Green. Virginia is going to rely upon making those big plays because they were the second worst team in the ACC last year scoring the football, 16 out of 17. Only Florida State was worse. Offensive line, probably the biggest issue on offense for the Cavaliers last year. It's still going to be a concern going into this season. So Louisville's defensive line in front seven should feast. Now, Jamari Taylor is Xavier Brown. Jamari Taylor coming from the FCS ranks. Xavier Brown returning. It's going to be a by-committee approach in the backfield. And yes, no Malachi Fields at wide receiver. They did bring in 2 Power 4 transfers. Jaden Thomas from Notre Dame and Jamal, I think it's Adrien from Purdue. So offense is going to have a different look this season. And if they can turn it around, things could get interesting. Defensively, they lose their all-American caliber safety, Jonas Sanker. Instead, now they have brought in Louisville transfer Devin Neal, who he's a veteran in the conference, but don't really think that he has that level of play that Sanker does. Antonio Clary is going to pair with Neal to form a pretty formidable safety tandem. All of their linebackers return. The defensive line is dominated by transfers. The cornerbacks are going to be the largest question mark for this Virginia defense. But overall, it kind of makes you wonder, okay, if Virginia is projecting to be this bad, well, why are they a potential trap game for the Louisville Cardinals? I think to answer that, you have to ask the other question. Why were they a trap game in 2023 when they had 2 wins? Why were they a trap game in 2024? It's the same reason they are in 2025. Like, for whatever reason, this game just is more uncomfortable than it should be. Now, if the Cardinals handle business, they could very well blow Virginia out and double them up on points. I do believe that. And I think that if it gets into a shootout, I really like Louisville's chances at scoring a ton of points, more than Virginia is going to be able to. But, I mean, it's got to be limiting the big plays. Chandler Morris is a guy who threw 12 interceptions last year. So if you can force the turnovers against him and make him throw into tight windows and into double coverage, win the turnover battle, you're going to be in a good spot. But I want to see how this game is played with no Anthony Calandri, because Calandri had that sort of he had that controlled chaos factor a little bit. Like when things broke down, he was able to extend drives. No Malachi Fields, who has been a thorn in Louisville's side over the past couple of seasons. Of course, Malik Washington was around in 2023 with Fields, and then it was just Fields in 24. If you can just eliminate the big play in 2025, I think that this goes from trap game to blowout. And I think that the only reason Virginia is on this list, and the Cardinals will play them October 4th, right before the bye. The only reason they're on this is because for whatever reason, struggling against Virginia has almost become a perennial thing. So when we go to number 2, we focus on an opponent that Louisville dominated last year, a complete free fall to end the season. I do think that they're going to bounce back in 2025, and there is one of the main reasons why they're on this list that we'll identify when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the show. Card Nation, today's episode of the show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It does the heavy lifting for you. For me, I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions that I wasn't even using anymore. Canceling those alone saved me money every single month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. As always, I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube, 5 days a week. Your team every day. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We are on the road to 5K subscribers, so every subscription is indeed appreciated. But we're continuing along in the top trap game rankings. Number 3, Virginia. Number 2, unlike the Virginia rationale, the Pittsburgh Panthers are on this list for different reasons. For starters, Pittsburgh is the first of 4 total road games. Like, it's very 2023-like, to where the Cardinals are playing the majority of their games at Cardinal Stadium. And even when they go on the road, half of those are in NFL stadiums. And that's the case for Pittsburgh. And it's not a stadium or a fan base that really is known for creating a home field atmosphere. Like you lost at Pittsburgh in 2023, there was really a great crowd. It was monsooning, and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But you will take on Pittsburgh Saturday, September 27th. It's the first road game of the season. It is the first ACC game of the season. I know that there is a portion of this fan base that will hype James Madison up at every turn. And then there are some that will completely dismiss them. I'm sort of in the middle here. I think that James Madison is a formidable opponent, but if you handle your business, you're going to win accordingly. So I think that there is a chance, although, the Dukes are still pretty solid. Pittsburgh is going to be like that first, true measuring stick test. Like, okay, how good is this team? You're going on the road for the first time. You're going on the road against a team that you beat 37-9 last year. Pittsburgh started the year out 7-0. They went into a free fall after that. Eli Holstein dealt with injuries. Desmond Reed dealt with injuries. They finished 7-6. And I called it. I hate to say it, but I called it. Like, when they went 7-0, I'm like, the reason that they are 7-0 is because they have played absolutely no one. And what happened? Immediately after, they went on the slide. And look, I don't care that I was right. It is what it is, right? I'm just saying that when they played good teams, they got exposed. But I do think that Pat Narduzzi's squad is going to try to bounce back and get right for 2025, because like Tony Elliott, Narduzzi very well could be on that hot seat as well. Eli Holstein could end up being one of the better true quarterbacks that the Cardinals go up against this season. He got hurt early on in that game against Louisville in late November. He had 2,225 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions in his first season of legitimately finding the field. He also had 81 carries for 328 yards and 3 touchdowns. So not a dual threat quarterback, but definitely able to extend drives and plays with his legs, which is something that Louisville struggled to contain last year. So you have a quarterback that's going to be able to throw the ball all over the field. And this is an offense that's going to be designed for big plays. Desmond Reed, 966 yards, 5 touchdowns as a rusher. He also had 52 receptions last year. I mean, he had an absolutely fantastic season, averaged 5.3 yards per carry, and factored into the receiving game a ton. So open field tackling is going to be a huge focal point for the Louisville defense in this game. Wide receivers, they lost Kanata Mumpfield, but Kenny Johnson, Poppy Williams are going to be serviceable replacements. It's basically Portal for the offensive line. They have some returning players, but Portal for the other side of that line. You know, with Pittsburgh, if they beat you, more than likely it's because of their defense. They were 6th in sacks last year, 4th in tackles for loss. Their pass rush is going to be their bread and butter, as it always is. Jimmy Scott, Nick James, Sean Fitzsimmons, Blaine Spires, those 4 guys in the rotation, I feel like are going to be, a pretty daunting pass rush to go up against. You have some really solid linebackers. Rasheem Biles, Braylon Lovelace, Kyle Lewis led the team in sacks. Like, the front 7 for this team is going to be very, very good. Now, the back half, the secondary, is sort of just designed to give up big plays with how Pittsburgh's defense operates. For Louisville's offense, it's going to be about stretching the field, getting the ball out to Chris Bell, getting the ball out to Colin Lacey in space, and letting him make magic happen. I think that Louisville is better than Pittsburgh, of course. Pittsburgh, I guess really depending on who you ask, they're anywhere from about like 6 to 11 in the preseason polls. I think that they still have a lot to prove. Like, maybe the way that I'm speaking about them makes them a little bit more makes them a little bit more imposing than they actually are. A little bit more threatening than they actually are. But, I mean, when you have a quarterback that can throw the ball like Holstein, you have a do-it-all running back, all-purpose guy like Desmond Reed, you've got some big-time playmakers, and then you've got a defense that could potentially keep this game a little bit lower scoring. Like, that's why it's a trap game for me, is that it's the first road game. It's the first ACC game. You're going to be required, or you're going to have to protect Miller Moss to the best of your abilities, because this is a game where that's going to be put to the test. The new guys on the offensive line, how are they going to do? How's this defense going to defend probably hands down the most explosive offense that they will have played all season long? Like, so it's like first test. Now, is it as tough of a test as NC State was in 2023? Maybe not from an atmosphere perspective, but hey, it's still a pretty solid team that you're going up against. I think that Pittsburgh is going to have some opportunity to bounce back. Now, how much is that going to happen? Like, is Pat Narduzzi going to be able to save his job? I'm going to say yes, and I think it's barely. But this is a tough one, because trap games aren't supposed to make sense. Like, you're sitting here saying, hey, Dalton, I mean, Louisville's supposed to beat Virginia. Louisville's supposed to beat Pittsburgh. Exactly. That's why it's a trap game. If it was a toss-up, it wouldn't be a trap game. A trap game, literally by paraphrased definition, is a game that either you overlook or you're supposed to win that ends up way closer than it should be, or you lose. And Virginia, Pittsburgh, however, I think with the 4 road games, SMU, Miami, those 2 teams, I mean, look, they aren't trap games, because you might not even be favored in those. Same with Clemson. I think that you're going to blow Kentucky out. I don't look at Kentucky as a trap game. The 3 games at the start of the season shouldn't be trap games. So there's only so many candidates, and I kind of gave the nod to Pittsburgh here because you are on the road, and I think that Pittsburgh just sort of has that formula to defeating Louisville, and that is big plays on offense and creating turnovers on defense. And I mean, if the Cardinals aren't careful, it could be a long afternoon. up in Pittsburgh on Saturday, September 27th. It is the week after the Bowling Green game and the week before the Virginia game. So Louisville having 2 trap games on the schedule. And truly, I don't think the schedule, like last year, you had a big game followed up by a team you should definitely beat. And you maybe beat 2 teams that you weren't supposed to the past 2 years, but you followed that up by immediately losing to 2 teams you shouldn't. So it kind of just washed that result. But the schedule's not as obvious on who the trap game is going to be. But number one for me was pretty clear. It's a team that we have never played on the road since joining the ACC. If you know who it is, great. If you don't, I'll tell you here in just a couple seconds. Card Nation, there is one more episode this week. It'll be tomorrow. We will have a weekly mailbag, so get your questions in the YouTube comments below. Any questions you want me to answer on tomorrow's show. But we're concluding with number one. The number one trap game candidate in 2025. And this was always one that I had circled because I think that you have a quarterback that can make life miserable for your defense. And you're playing at, I mean, there are easier places to play than this venue. But with that being said, enter Sandman. Number one is the Virginia Tech Hokies. Now, Virginia Tech last season, if you remember like some of our previews, I thought that Virginia Tech was going to be the dark horse to contend in the ACC. And for a couple of different reasons, they did not. They went 6-6. They lost the bowl game to move to 6-7. Kyron Drones spent some time dealing with injuries. Like this was just a team that completely underachieved. They had an opportunity to knock off Miami early on in the season, and you remember that old Hail Mary that got reversed. For whatever reason, VT did give up that lead. But Brent Pry is, again, I feel like a common theme here is a head coach on the hot seat. Brent Pry, this is sort of the money year for him. Like he has to be able to produce results, and this is the toughest road venue that Louisville will play. Saturday, November 1st at Virginia Tech, at Lane Stadium, enter Sandman. I mean, you're playing at SMU, at Miami, at Pittsburgh, at Virginia Tech. It's hands down the toughest of the 4 away stadiums to play in. Lane Stadium probably will be rocking depending on how good Virginia Tech is. This is the first time that Louisville will play VT at VT since they've joined the ACC, which is just kind of wild to even think about, but it's true. And they've only played Virginia Tech, I think, twice in conference play since joining the conference, and they are 1-1. They lost when Hendon Hooker was the quarterback at VT. They lost by 7 that game, and then they completely dominated Virginia Tech back in 2023, if you remember that. But Virginia Tech is led by quarterback Kyron Drones, who, when he's healthy, is very much a controlled chaos type quarterback, able to extend plays with his legs, big play potential quarterback, 6'2", 235 pounds, a hard runner to take down. 2023, he had 2,084 passing yards, 17 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He regressed a lot in 24 with 1,562 yards, 10 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So if he sort of reverts back to that 2023 form, VT is going to be at least pretty respectable. Now, new offensive coordinator, Philip Montgomery, comes in. He was brought in by Brent Pry to be able to unlock Kyron Drones. Terrion Stewart, the big bruising running back from Bowling Green State, is going to lead that backfield rotation for the Hokies. Wide receiver play, Aiden Green had 100 yards in the bowl game. Donovan Green, Tennessee transfer Cameron Selden are going to be the guys that are relied upon the most to be able to come in and give you some solid snaps at wide receiver. The thing that kind of makes me feel good about this for Louisville is that they're replacing all 5 offensive line starters, and Brent Pry has hired his 3rd offensive line coach in 4 seasons. So, of course, that has not been up to standard for Virginia Tech. And the offense, again, I think the formula for being a trap game is you have an opposing offense that can put up points in big-time fashion. Like, I think Virginia Tech is one of those teams to where not only can they create big plays, but Drones is such an effective mobile quarterback that if Louisville doesn't show me that they can defend the mobile quarterback any more efficiently and effectively than they did last year, I mean, it could be a very high-scoring affair. Defensively, like on the offensive side, there's a new coordinator. Sam, I think it's Siefkes, Siefkes. He's an up-and-comer leading that defensive charge for Brent Pry's team. The strength for the Hokies is in the defensive line. Kevin Gilliam Jr. and Kamari Copeland on the interior. You've got two non-Power 4 transfers coming in to be the go-to pass rushers, James Jonkham, Djonkam, and Ben Bell. Linebackers, it's a tough go for them, but they are returning their leading tacklers, Jaden Keller and Caleb Woodson. Main thing with Virginia Tech is the secondary. They had guys transfer out. They've got some guys transferring in. But the main question marks for this team, for Virginia, for Pittsburgh, is the secondary. Are the Hokies going to be respectable in the back end of the defense? I don't know. Hopefully not. Let's just say hopefully not. But this is the game where I had someone ask me, is it really a trap game if you see it coming? It can be. I mean, I think that the only thing that can make a trap game not a trap game would be like the spread. Like if Virginia Tech is like, what is it? What game is that on the season for Virginia Tech? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, hold on, I just miscount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like if they're 6-2 or something, like they have South Carolina to start the year. They've also got Georgia Tech. If Virginia Tech is like 6-2 and really, really respectable, I think that kind of either lowers it on this list or it takes them completely off the list, because then it's not a trap game. Like if Virginia Tech is like less than a 7-point underdog, that's not really that much of a trap game. But for me, is Virginia Tech going to beat South Carolina? I don't think so. Are they going to beat Georgia Tech? I don't think so. That game's at Tech. So there's 2 losses in my opinion. And then you've got Vanderbilt at home, and Vanderbilt is going to be a tough team with Clark Lee leading the charge with Diego Pavia back. So, I mean, there's a chance. And then at NC State, they could have 4 losses by the time they play the Cardinals. But I still think Louisville should be favored pretty decently in this game. That's why Virginia Tech is the number 1 trap game. Lane Stadium, one of the only true road games that you will play. Toughest environment that you will play on the road. And a quarterback that can just make your life miserable. So number 3, Virginia. Number 2, Pittsburgh. And number 1, Virginia Tech. Let me know your all's thoughts in the comments below. Tell me who your top trap game candidates are. And also ask your mailbag questions in the comments below. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Go Cards.